Happening now, new details about the bombs used to attack the Boston Marathon. Investigators say the hunt for a suspect is still asking the public for help. Gut-wrenching stories of young lives cut short. The mother of a 29-year-old victim speaking out just a short while ago. And we're reconstructing the scene of the bombings to show you exactly what investigators are looking for and the places where clues may be hidden right now. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Boston. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. This is a special edition of the Situation Room, Boston Marathon bombings. Here in Boston, we're seeing a lot of raw emotion and determination to honor the victims of the marathon terror attack and to find out who is responsible. If you're just joining our team coverage, here are some of the latest developments. Investigators have just confirmed publicly that the bombs used in the attack were likely placed in pressure cookers and then hidden in a nylon bag or backpack. They're asking witnesses who may have seen someone with a bag like that to contact them as soon as possible. President Obama will travel here to Boston on Thursday for a religious interfaith service dedicated to the 3 people killed in the attack and the more than 180 people injured. We now know the name of another of the 3 people who died. Her name, Crystal Campbell. She was 29 years old. Her mother spoke out just a little while ago in tears, saying she and her family are heartbroken. And we also just learned that the 3rd person who died was a Boston University graduate student. We'll bring you more when we get it. Investigators here in Boston say their hunt for a suspect in these terror bombings is still preliminary, and this case, they say, is wide open.
Among items partially recovered are pieces of black nylon, which could be from a backpack, and what appear to be fragments of BBs and nails, possibly contained in a pressure cooker device. In addition, this morning, it was determined that both of the explosives were placed in a dark-colored nylon bag or backpack. The bag would have been heavy because of the components believed to be in it.
Let's bring in our chief national correspondent, John King, who's working his sources, doing some serious reporting on what's going on. It's clearly a preliminary stage. At its infancy, the FBI agent in charge says of this investigation.
Only a little over a day old, Wolf, this investigation, but you do start to sense a bit of frustration from sources you talked to in private. And at that public briefing we just heard, you heard the FBI special agent in charge. He used the term infancy. He also made a public appeal asking anyone who might think have any slightest clue. Did you know anyone who might have had a big black nylon bag or a backpack, who might have said something disparaging about the marathon or some plan to come down here to attend the marathon? Clearly, and what I'm told by sources in the public briefing, they said there were no suspects as yet. What I'm told by several sources in private is there's a frantic review of the video evidence underway. There are some gaps in the forensics so far in terms of they have video images of the sites where the explosions were, possible video images of the devices on site. No video, at least in the conversations just a short time ago, showing any suspicious person or persons dropping a package and trying to leave. So that is the appeal for public help. Anybody say anything? Does anyone have an image that might help the FBI in this investigation? You heard the special agent in charge say part of the debris, including what he believes to be fragments from a pressure cookers, sent to the Quantico FBI laboratory, where they will try to do just as they try to do after an airplane crash, essentially try to put together, reconstruct the plane, in this case, reconstruct the explosive device, and then hope they can find a fingerprint, DNA, some signature that might lead them to an individual or to an organization. I can tell you, though, at this point, Wolf, all the sources I have talked to, they say this is not a bluff, that they have no suspect identified so far. They had a Saudi national identified as a person of interest. They conducted a search of his apartment. They say that individual has been cleared, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so you have now, in the second full day of the investigation, thousands of federal, state, and local authorities. The crime scene right over there, the restricted area was 15 blocks. It's been cut down to about 12 blocks now. But essentially, they're still looking. And you heard the ATF representative at that news conference saying they are finding debris up on rooftops and also embedded into buildings, trying to get all of that evidence again to try to rebuild, to try to find clues. But clearly, when they make a public appeal for help like that, it tells you at this point, in the words of one of the Boston police sources I spoke to a few hours ago, they're stymied.
And that forensic lab at Quantico in Virginia, the FBI lab, when they're going to try to piece together as much as they can to see if it fits other bombs that they may have seen, whether here in the United States or elsewhere around the world, explode over the years.
And it's what makes it, and our terrorism experts can do a better job than I can at this, what it makes the investigation, at least in this infancy stage as they described it, so difficult, in the sense that this is a relatively crude device. Yes, a device that has been used by al-Qaeda, used by the Taliban in the past, but I want to stress this from all of our sources, from all of our reporters, producers, and correspondents, zero evidence of any communications, any intelligence suggesting a foreign terrorist involvement as yet. And even though this has been used, this type of technology has been used by al-Qaeda and the Taliban in the past, it is also, sadly, in this age of the internet, technology where you can go online and essentially find a how-to to build a bomb like this. And so no one has ruled out domestic terrorism. No one has ruled out this being a single lone wolf bomber, perhaps someone with help. They say right now, those are among the many, many questions.
It's significant also that no one has claimed responsibility. There's almost a thunderous silence, if you will. That speaks volumes to a lot of these investigators.
If you look backwards at past terrorist attacks, obviously, if it's al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, if it is some political group, even a domestic political group trying to make a point, often there is a claim of responsibility within the first day or two. That silence is, again, part of the investigation and a reminder to us that what is not being said and what we don't know is perhaps much more important than what we do know.
All right, John, don't go too far away. Just moments before the terror attack here in Boston, 29-year-old Crystal Campbell was waiting near the finish line of the marathon to cheer on the runners. Now she's dead. Her identity was confirmed only a few hours ago. Jason Carroll is in the Campbell's hometown of Medford, right outside of Boston. Jason, tell us what's going on. What are you learning?
Just a terrible story, Wolf, like so many other stories. Just a little while ago, Patty Campbell came out on her front porch. She tried to speak about her daughter, but she was so overcome by grief, she just simply couldn't do it. And their story is just a tragic case of a mix-up. Let me explain a little bit more about what happened to Crystal Campbell. As you said, she went out to watch the marathon. She got caught in that first explosion. And then, Wolf, shortly thereafter, was taken to the hospital, and her parents were told that she was okay, that they were working, trying to save her leg. Shortly after the operation, her parents came into the room and learned it wasn't her at all that had survived. It was her friend. And so you can imagine how terribly awful they feel at this point, how they're trying to deal with the loss of their daughter, trying to deal with this tragedy. Again, just a short while ago, Patty Campbell came out, tried to speak to the press, but eventually a spokesman had to say what she simply could not.
We are heartbroken at the death of our daughter, Crystal Marie. She was a wonderful person. Everybody that knew her loved her. She loved her dogs. She was a dynamite girl. She had a heart of gold. She was always smiling and friendly. I couldn't ask for a better daughter. I can't believe this has happened. She was such a hard worker at everything she did. This doesn't make any sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What kind of daughter was she, ma'am?
She was the best. You couldn't ask for a better daughter.
And this statement is from Patty Campbell, the mother of Crystal Campbell. We are heartbroken at the death of our daughter, Crystal Marie. She was a wonderful person. Everyone who knew her loved her. She was sweet and kind and friendly, always smiling. She worked so hard at everything she did.
And Wolf, just a short while ago, I reached out to Massachusetts General Hospital, just trying to get some clarification about what the Campbells are saying, what happened to their daughter. Spokeswoman telling me that they are still in the process of gathering information, trying to determine exactly what happened before they could release a statement. But it just goes to show you, just in the hours after what happened, there was so much confusion in some ways. Even some of the most experienced, trained doctors, things like this can happen. Wolf?
Can't tell you how awful it must be, how awful for Patty Campbell, the mother of Crystal Campbell. It's shocking to me that she could even go out there and even try to make a statement. I know she tried, and our heart, of course, goes out to her, to the entire family, the families of the other victims, those who were killed. They were all so young, a young boy, Crystal Campbell. Now we've learned a graduate student at Boston University. Jason, I don't know how these people can cope under these circumstances, and so many others, so many dozens of others of parents and family members and friends. They know those who are seriously critically injured, losing limbs. This is such a horrendous situation. It makes no sense whatsoever, and investigators are trying to figure out what happened.
That's exactly right. And imagine, Wolf, the relief at first when you find out that something like this has happened to someone in your family, and then, in a sense, you're relieved that at least they're okay, and then it becomes the worry as you're hearing that doctors are working, and in this case, trying to save her leg. And then, of course, you're dealing with the grief upon learning about what really happened, and then, in a sense, some anger as well, trying to sort out how something like this could have happened. It's all of the emotions that this family is trying to deal with.
Please send our love to the family if you have a chance to speak with them over there in Medford. Jason, thanks very much for that report. Such a sad story indeed. And to our viewers, if you're looking for ways to help people affected by the Boston bombings, go to CNN.com/impact, and a lot of good opportunities to do something positive as a result of this horrendous tragedy. Let's take a closer look at these terrorist bombings. CNN's Tom Foreman and CNN analyst Tom Fuentes, a former FBI assistant director, are both standing by. Tom Foreman, give us a little sense of what's going on here as far as this investigation is concerned.
Wolf, Tom and I have been talking all day long about three critical time periods that have to be considered in all of this. And let me bring in the crime scene here so we can talk about what we mean. First critical time period, the actual time of the explosion. We know that about 17,000 runners had already crossed the finish line on Boylston Street. Another 6,000 were headed that way when the first big bomb went off. They're just short of the finish line. And about 2 football fields away, 12 seconds later, the second bomb went off. Obviously, those sites, Tom, are critical to investigators in terms of physical evidence. What are they looking at right now?
Well, Tom, the first thing they want to do is try to recover as much of the bomb device as they can to help identify who may have made it, how it was constructed, and get an idea whether right there it would help focus whether it's international or domestic or a group that's been seen before by the way it was put together. So first issue is get pieces of that bomb and as much evidence of the explosive device and the material containing the device as they can. And
we've been hearing bits and pieces about that all day, about like a nylon bag, that sort of thing. But let me rotate the table around here because I want to show you something here. The expanded search area is actually much bigger than the initial explosion, Tom. They didn't just focus on the initial area, but really for a couple of blocks around. Why so far?
The materials in the bomb are exploding and traveling through the air at about 7,000 feet per second. You could easily have material from the first bomb overlap material from the second bomb. So literally, you could find a detonator near the second bomb that maybe came from the first bomb. So you have this tremendous amount of debris that could possibly overlap depending on the position of the buildings and
you can even have a critical part that was blown up onto, for example, one of the rooftops that may be a block away.
This is one of the other first places they looked. This is very common in an explosion to have parts of the bomb go airborne straight up and over the top of buildings, even land blocks away.
Let's talk about the second critical time here. The second critical time is the time right before the race. Let's change all these pictures to what was happening then. There were happy families, people gathered all around. There had been a sweep for explosives just 3 hours before this went off. So, Tom, they're looking at photographs, they're looking at video, they're talking to all these people and saying, what did you see that maybe at that time did not seem like a big deal?
Right, and you had people coming and going all during that time. And again, the belief that timers were used for the device, so somebody could have come there and put the device down and walked away a long period of time, let's say, before the bomb exploded. Now, I don't think they would have done too long of time fearing that maybe dogs would come along and locate the device and neutralize it. So probably the period of about 30 minutes to up to the time of the explosion would be the critical time. But from a video and witness standpoint, the police would want to be looking back to several hours if they can to see if somebody was there a longer period of time or came and went a couple of times.
One other really critical thing, and this is very different in this crime scene compared to many others, Wolf. The simple truth is every single runner in this race coming down that chute was wearing an electronic tracking tags so that the race organizers would know where they were. Those runners are busy running. Well, they really don't have time to be looking at the sidelines, but they still matter. Why?
Well, the important thing is that the runner probably has family members, friends, neighbors, colleagues who are on the sidelines to support them. So by knowing who crossed that line at a certain time, you go to the runner and then ask them about who else was there with you, and we would like to interview them,
and that
talk
gives
to them, see if they
investigators
have photographs.
phone numbers and emails and everything else. The last critical period of time, of course, is what happened before and after that, whether or not somebody was in a restaurant, whether somebody was in a parking garage or captured by another security camera some distance away. Did they see something that will lead to the fourth critical period of time, Wolf, and that is an arrest? Wolf?